Hello, welcome to That Mill podcast. Post-mortem, post-depression after a defeat at the Rico Arena. I call it anyway on Tuesday night. Joining myself, Omer, I've got Stephen. Hello, mate. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. I mean, all things considered, it was a blip in the road on Tuesday night, and we're going to go into lengths about that, and obviously talk about Saturday's game coming against Sheffield United, who also lost last night. Sets up for an interesting occasion, nonetheless, on Saturday. But yeah, we'll go straight into Tuesday night's defeat at the Rico Arena, mate. I mean, it's actually the Coventry Building Society Arena Stadium, I should say, as it's called nowadays. I hate different stadium names nowadays, but that's another topic for another day. What did you make of Tuesday, mate? I mean, it was on the telly. I think I was up there obviously, and damp squid. I mean, classic Millwall after big high on Saturday against QPR. I suppose you can say.
After the Lord Mayor's show, I think
Yeah.
is the popular saying that goes around. I think they looked frightened. I think for majority of the game, and that's not a Millwall that we're used to or what we should really have to expect. Guy Carrez, top player, arguably the best player in the division. So, okay, you might have to give him a little bit of respect, and you can't go all gung ho. But I think they showed him too much, and they were so worried about him. They let Casey Palmer run the show because they were preoccupied with Guy Carrez, and in the end, it didn't work because he scored the winner. Um, I'm sure we'll come on to it and go into a bit more detail. The tactics, I don't think, are quite right. Away from home in a game that's kind of you're looking to at least get a point, build some momentum going into two big games, and we just sat there pretty much a typical not looking to lose the game. And when you do lose the game, you have to sort of ask questions of why.
No, definitely. I mean, it was an unchanged 11, obviously, from Saturday's win at QPR. I kind of agreed with it, to be honest. In hindsight, maybe you could have made some changes. Maybe Burke could have been on for a bit of pace, I suppose, as the game played out. And, the change did come straight after the goal. I think Burke and Fogelson were warming up or getting their shirts ready as the goal went in. But yeah, obviously not ideal, not the result, obviously, we wanted there. And yeah, I mean, you lost there for a split second, mate. But I was just saying, obviously, the changes were coming and the goal ultimately came. But I was first half in particular, we just gave them too much respect, didn't we? I think, and sat off them. They're good football inside Coventry, but obviously they're missing a couple of players. No Callum O'Hare, for example. No Fancy Dabo, who I've always liked. That said, actually, their right-sided wing-back, I suppose, / attacker, Norton Cuffy was brilliant, I thought. Yeah, I mean, Guy Corez, like you said, we set off him, gave him respect. I fell into it. I think I listened to our show that you done with the Coventry fan on the way up, and I was like, Guy Corez is a brilliant link-up kind of striker, does a lot on the ball, and then doesn't score decent, doesn't take his chances. He missed a couple in the first half, then the second half he finished with a plum, didn't he, mate? And it's all she wrote, really. I mean, we huffed and puffed towards the end. We were just talking before we done the show, but it was too little too late, wasn't it?
Yeah, and look, I don't. Sometimes I think it's okay when you play. Who I know we've got them at home, which is a bit different. But you go to Burnley away, you go to Sheffield United away. You might look to be a little bit more cautious. You coming away from a point at those kind of places would be seen as a good result. But Coventry, whilst I think they played very well, I just feel like there's a lot of teams in the league that are equal quality or of an equal standard, and you should be going to win the game. And it only looked like we were trying to get something from the game after we'd conceded, which I know there's a lot of talk that happens quite often under Rowett. I think they looked like they had a little bit of the bit between their teeth. I think they really come out wanting it, and we sort of, I don't know. It's difficult you don't want to describe a Millwall team as kind of not wanting to be there, which I think might be a little bit harsh, but it just looked like they were just trying to scrap and survive and just come away with a point and shake their hands and go type thing. I don't think it was all negative though. I think George Long has come under a bit of criticism the last couple of games prior to Coventry. Perhaps he could have done better against Sunderland. Perhaps he could have done better with QPR's goal. But I thought a couple of saves in the first half were really, really good. And I think he's a good goalkeeper. And I think whilst we've lost, and that's disappointing, I think he is looking like he is getting better and better. And perhaps, some of the criticism that's gone his way can kind of start to fade away a little bit.
Definitely, I think he's obviously come on leaps and bounds, got the confidence because he's playing every game, and Rout's chosen him. He's his number one quite
Hmm.
firmly at this point. We all know that, obviously, since October time, September time, even. Um, I agree with you. I think try and take the positive spin out of it. I thought even Charlie Creswell had a really good game again. I know,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
for the goal he was a bit culpable, you could say, and obviously gave that little bit of yard to Guy Corres, but then the finish was taking with a plum, and you're not going to get any players doing that aside from him in the championships, I suppose, are you? And I think he was a difference maker. He was the one making things happen for them. Obviously, like you said, we gave Case Palmer a bit of space, and their white ring back Norton Cucky, like I said, a bit of space. But aside from that moment of brilliance, Coventry weren't that great, and I guess that hits back to your point. We gave them a bit too much respect, didn't we? I feel like.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because I don't often see many teams give us the respect that we seem to give opposition.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of managers, you always get the classic one is there a physical side. Millwall, that's the classic that you tend to get from anyone, whether at the bottom of the league or the top of the league. But I don't know, we just seem to give teams sometimes a little bit too much respect. I thought we did it to Sunderland.
Mhm.
We give them a lot of respect at home. QPR maybe not so much. I thought we were quite on the front foot for the majority of the game, but I think the players need to believe, and maybe Rowett needs to believe in their abilities a little bit more, and try and be a bit more forward thinking. I'll come on to which I think we probably need to discuss the fact that Bradshaw and Fleming are. Bradshaw more so the workhorse. He's willing to run. We know he's going to run through brick walls. But I think I'd be pretty annoyed if I was the centre forward who's never been a target man in his life that has to play for 70 minutes having the ball knocked up to him, trying to work off of scraps, gets taken off after we go 1-0 down and we start trying to play football and get it into feet. I can't work that out. And Fleming, there's been a lot of talk this week about his should we say drought? Is that fair? I suppose. I don't think we're getting the best out of him. I don't think we're using him right. And sometimes, you might need to try and find a spark and find a way. But if he's watching the ball go over his head for 70, 80 minutes, I don't really know what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think it's an easy scapegoat, I suppose. And like you say, I don't know why we didn't learn from our lessons. I mean, I remember playing Coventry at home at the start of the season, or whenever it was early in the season. We went 2-0 down, and then the red card kind of turned the game on its head a little bit. I think we got one before half time, but the first half, I think we had a phobia against McFadden and Godden, their centre halves, and they just had a field day. They're winning every single long ball, and I was thinking to myself, are we going to change up a little bit on the way up there? Because I was remembering that game, thinking, what turned the game was the red card on that occasion. And aside from that, Coventry were value for their lead at the time. And I was thinking, can we learn from this mistake and kind of maybe do something a bit different? And I think he was relying on the kind of the momentum to carry them into the game for Tuesday. And it just never really started until the end, really. I think, that's when we made the changes. And you see Burke come on, Shackleton off to something different. Obviously, Romanese, who we got to talk about, I'm sure, in a minute. But obviously I missed a lot of the reaction online because I went to the game, then I drove home, and then went to bed and didn't read too much about what was said on the night. And I was hearing you guys talk about it in the chat, and I was like, why is Fleming getting the stick? Because I don't think he had a bad game on Tuesday night personally. The game passed him by at times because the ball went up long, but you look at him, and especially when you're at the games, and I'm sure it's noticeable on the telly as well, like I said to you before the show, Stephen, but he's that quality on the ball. When he passes the ball, it's crisp, it's zipped, and it's on the sixpence half the time as well, where it's straight to the player. And you watch some of our players try to pass it around. It annoys me seeing Cooper pass the ball around the back, for example, because Cooper's not great with the ball at his feet. He doesn't hit it. He doesn't pass with the way you should do for a team that looks after the ball at the back, for example. But that's not Cooper's game, so I'll never hold him to that. But you watch Fleming play, and the passes he makes and the vision he has, no one else on the team has that kind of capability. So to give him the stick for it, I agree with you. It's a thankless task for them, especially in them sort of games where we're just playing it long and their centre half's having a field day, I suppose.
I think the other thing with Fleming as well is that, and I don't know what it is, again, it's who knows, but at the start of the season and up to the World Cup, every time we'd get the ball sort of 20, 30 yards out, he'd look up and hit it. Now, look, you can't just have pop shots from 30 yards all the time. You do have to have a little bit of guile and a little bit of ability and technical ability to maybe beat a player. But he doesn't seem to be shooting anymore. And it's almost as if the free kick that he had, there's a lot of hype about, he's practicing and he does them before the game, and there's a lot of talk about it. It was a terrible, terrible free kick.
Mhm.
But that was his only opportunity, or that was the only opportunity he had to take a shot on goal. I often think, and I'd hate for this to be the case, that's kind of being knocked out of him a little bit.
Yeah.
And as you say, his quality is having the ball to his feet, turning and picking a pass, or beating a man, or having a shot, using what has got him, plaudits in Holland. He has got plaudits in the Championship so far this year. There will obviously be people looking at him going, yeah, he's a good player. But it just seems that we're knocking it out of him a little bit. And as you say, there's not many people in our team. And it's interesting you say about Jake Cooper. I thought the same thing. You watch Jake Cooper pass it from, it's usually him to Murray Wallace on the left-hand side. And it's a softly hit pass. Sometimes it barely makes it to him, and it puts him into trouble. Cresswell, on the other hand, because he's come up through the Leeds Academy, you watch him. I know sometimes he tries the diagonal, it might go out of play, but there's a little bit more zip. There's, as you say, there's a little bit more, directness and a little bit more sharpness to the pass. Fleming can do that, and he can do it in an attacking position, but we just don't feed him the ball, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right to say Cresswell. Actually, I was thinking that on the night on Tuesday, and there was moments where he gets the ball, and it's like, especially when teams sit deep against you, we're 1-0 down, and Coventry seen the result out, and they got it at the end. But you need players to have that kind of, because then passes are the ones, if they're quick and direct, and players are running onto it, you're going to get through and break through, like we saw with Shackleton as well towards the end with Fleming's pass. But you're right to say about Fleming. I think as the game went on, he just got deeper and deeper because he wanted to see more of the ball, and it doesn't affect the game in them sort of areas. And I think probably it was down that due to how we were playing and how the game was going, and the fact he weren't getting many touches of the ball, I suppose. And it was evident, like as the half went on in the second half, he just got deeper, and you want Fleming to be in and around the box affecting things, I suppose, don't you? So yeah, I did want to name check one more player, not necessarily for a good performance. It was Murray Wallace. I think it was his worst performance I've seen him play for a long time. He's had an up and down season. Obviously, last year, ever consistent on the left side, and just went from strength to strength. All the chops he'd done and all the easy runs he had, full of confidence, full of beans last season. I think that was the worst I've seen him play for a long time, to be honest, on Tuesday night. It was the constant deliveries into the box with the keeper claiming it, just too close to the keeper that I've got mitis in the first half especially.
I think if we're being honest, I think he's been found out this year. I think Rowett's unlucky with Styles. Styles would be playing at left back at the moment. The performance, I can't remember who he come in against, and he was very good at left. Yes, yeah, it was Cardiff.
Yeah,
and he looked good. He looked good at left back, and I think that was going to be his position for the foreseeable future. And obviously the injury, and he's out for a long time now, so that can't be helped. But Murray Wallace, I just feel like his teams are working him out. He is probably the weaker link in the defence. He was Mr. Reliable last year, and I'm not saying Murray Wallace is a bad player, but at left back, I feel like teams are looking at him and pinning him down, and he's good for a booking. Yeah. He is so good for a booking. And then once he's on the booking, if they've got a tricky quick winger or a wing back, he can't make a tackle. And, I like Murray Wallace, and I think there'd still be a place for him. I think he could even be, you could look at if desperation come in or whatever, you could play him at centre-half, maybe, and it might be a little bit more natural for him. But I think he's just starting to be found out. And I think we might have to look at Malone, because it's just not working.
That begs the question, because, oh God, on Tuesday night, I'm getting flashbacks to the chant that came out from some of the crowd for Scott Malone. It was young kids giving it and singing to Spandu Ballet Gold. And I'm like, this is not a thing, and I can't believe this. Scott Malone is, I think, also someone that's kind of a little bit fallen off the cliff. He's been in and out, he's been injured this season. He's not really had that run of games where you're like, Scott Malone's on form here and on song. And it is, obviously, you mentioned Styles Day. It's an untimely injury for him, isn't it? And I think it is either like a stick or twist now a little bit. And Murray Wallace is the sort of player, I think, that will play himself out with the bad form, and I think he could come back from it. I think you're right to say he's been found out, but he's efficient at what he does. But there's times where you need something different in there, especially going forward in the wide areas. And I guess it is calling for Malone Saturday a little bit, isn't it? I suppose if you look to that, I guess
I think Scott Malone look, I think we all know that defensively there's frailty. I think there's frailties with all three styles, Malone and Murray Wallace. Murray Wallace is probably the better defender out of the three of them. And whilst we're not, obviously we moved away from the wing back, which is I think Malone would have been playing had we have still been playing that formation. But if you're struggling to score goals, which we are, let's be honest, we are struggling to score goals. I know 2 at QPR we scored against Sunderland, but it's not. We're finding ways to score goals rather than creating them. I think at wingback or at fullback, you do need a little bit more, and I think Malone is capable. Malone's delivery is better than Murray Wallace. I think Malone is more willing to take a shot on than Murray Wallace, and I think as well. I don't think he should dishearten Wallace. I know it might sound like I'm saying that he needs to be dropped, but maybe just a break. Just take him out of the firing line. Let Malone have a chance at playing a couple of games. We'll need Murray Wallace at some point. We know that we've got a lot of fixtures coming up. But give him a rest. Just give him a chance to take a step back and maybe find some confidence.
You mentioned the wing back system and obviously 5 at the back. At half time, I kind of thought it might have been calling for Leonard to come on. I don't know what you thought. Like something where you can tell they're running right in wide areas. They're getting forward, throwing bodies forward. I don't know if I was thinking, right, get Leonard on maybe for Watmore and then maybe throw Burke on instead of Bradshaw or something and go for it on the counter attack a little bit. It felt like a little bit. And I don't know, maybe that was, hindsight is a wonderful thing. But I do wonder, especially with Burnley coming Tuesday, how their players in the forward areas, it wouldn't surprise me if we kind of maybe return to the back 5 if Hutchinson was to come back. I don't know how far away he is, for example, but it does beg the question, I suppose, a little bit there. Is that something that could be looming potentially?
I think so. The way I thought on Tuesday at half time was to take Honeyman off and get Leonard on and then go with Watmore and Bradshaw as a 2 and Fleming in behind. That's, I mean, we're not football money, Gary Rowett is paid to do it, but that's how I thought it could be a way of. I think that would have helped with the Gyökeres situation because you'd have had someone with some legs,
correct,
at the back rather than reliant on 2 bigger, sort of bulky centre halves to try and deal with someone that's got good movement. I think Rowett, it almost feels like, and I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but it almost feels like he's been pressured away from the 5 at the back. He does do it in games, but I feel like he won't do it to start.
Yeah,
but Burnley would be a prime example. Perhaps they've got Nathan Teller, who's again a very, very good player, very quick. To someone to get some legs at the back and maybe try and shore up a little bit. I don't think you'd lose too much in an attacking sense because I think you still have the pace of Watmore. You could go with Burke, so you'd still be able to get out. But I think it would help shore us up a little bit against those tricky, quicker players that we seem to struggle with.
Definitely. I mean, a criticism, I suppose we all want criticism in the sense of Rowett. I mean, I love Rowett now, I suppose. I mean, he can't knock the job he's done, right? But I think he's very reactive instead of proactive at times. And he'll be very reactive to a situation and just like sometimes you wait for it and some managers might try and be proactive. But then we've had a proactive person, I suppose, before, like Ian Holloway, for example. And yeah, God, that was a terrible day. So it's like, it's chalk and cheese. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you're a championship football manager. I do want to end on talking about Coventry on a bright spark, and that was Roman Esse. I mean, I thought what struck me was he wasn't necessarily looking for the ball, but I think also with the time he's had with the squad, training with them, being involved around the squad, I think the players have got trust in him as well, which I think is a big thing because as soon as he came on, they gave him the ball. And it's like, I think maybe, training week in, week out with them, seeing him on the training ground, I think they can see there's a player there. And I think the manager can too, mate. And I thought he was brilliant when he came on Tuesday night.
Do you know, this is going to sound really stupid, but it's something that I noticed, and he's done it a few times now. He comes on and you give him the ball, and the first thing he's doing little ball rolls.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's trying to say to defender, come on in, tackle me and I'll take it past you. And we don't have that. Really, we don't have that tricky winger. Yeah, okay, Burke and Watmore, they're more. I think that I would consider them more sort of hustle and bustle forwards. Maybe sort of power their way through. Whereas Esse is more tricky. Going back to, I thought he was incredibly harsh for him to be dropped when he was against Sunderland. I thought he really should have been in around the first team. Yeah, okay, Mason Bennett, unfortunate injury, and that's got him back in. But I think we need to see more of him. The confidence in a 17-year-old to, and as you say, it's not like he's screaming for the ball. The players are naturally going, go on then. Go and play.
And you don't always have that with young players when they come in, I don't think.
No. It's one of those where I always maintain, I'm obviously not comparing them, but you had Dom Sibley at not Dom Sibley, Louis Sibley at
Yeah,
Derby.
Derby.
He was 17 years old when he come into the Championship and he scored a hat-trick against us, actually, I think, during lockdown. Wayne Rooney was 17 when he come on for Everton. You know, age doesn't matter. It doesn't matter doesn't matter how old you are. If you're good enough, I would like to see him get more game time. I don't think Rowett's brave enough to do it, but I would certainly like to see a front three, perhaps of, Watmore on the left, Burke through the middle, and Essay on the right hand side, and really try and go at teams, because I think their movement and pace could be something special to watch.
Definitely, and I think we will see that at some point. I think maybe later in the games as such, but it just struck me. I think I was talking about this on the way home actually, with mate. I did think, a criticism of Wright is often like he's tried and tested players, but then you look at our side now: Matt Lamara, Billy Mitchell, and then you've got Essay. I do think he gives players an opportunity. There was often that kind of thing of like, oh, you got George Alexander there, you got Tom Leahy now, play him, give him a go. I think Rowett knows a good player when he sees one, I feel like. And I do think he has that trust in Essay. And hopefully, like you say, he's probably not far away from a start if he continues playing how he did on Tuesday, I feel like.
I think the other thing with Rowett as well, and again, it's interesting at the timing of it, but Rowett knows he's not going to be backed hugely financially in the transfer window. I know we could do a whole couple of hours on our transfer policy, but he's not going to be backed how maybe we need him to be, or the funds are not necessarily available to revamp the entire squad. And I think what that suggests is that Rowett has to look at the under 21s or 23s and go, okay, XYZ looks quite good. He's a first team prospect. We want to have a closer look at him. It happened with Zach Lovelace. I think the club were unfortunate that I think his head was turned a little bit with the move up to Scotland. But I think Rowett does have a little bit of or more faith in the academy players than maybe other managers that we've had previously. But again, if they're good enough to be, I think if they're good enough to be on the bench, that means they're good enough to be playing. And I think in a team that struggles to create and score, what I don't think you've got anything to lose. The fans are not going to turn on a 17-year-old, and if they do, then they might want to have a look at themselves. But he's 17 years old. He's exciting talent, and you never know. He could be. Everyone talks about Fleming having the being the one that perhaps is the big money transfer down the line. SA 17 and he's English. Why could it not be him if he gets an opportunity?
100%. I do agree, and you never know. Saturday could be his opportunity.
I hope so.
I mean, you never know. It's probably going to be a closer sellout. I mean, I've not seen the club tweet too much about it this week. Maybe I've missed it, but I know last week they were saying it's numbers are quite good and it was selling quite well. So hopefully Tuesday's not demoralised too many fans and we turn up on Saturday, and you never know. Romanese could be in there. But let's move on to Saturday as I talk about that. Sheffield United come to town. Obviously, we had them in the FA Cup, mate, and we lost. We had them earlier in the season, got comprehensively beat in the first half in particular, and then rallied a bit like Coventry, I suppose, in a sense. It's quite a common theme to our away games. Leave it too little too late. We're 2-0 down, the damage is done, or 1-0 down. But, they lost last night at the time of recording on Wednesday at home to Middlesbrough. Their first defeat since before the World Cup. I guess they're going to be looking for a bounce back. So I don't know how you feel about that one, but it should be interesting Saturday.
I try not to think too much about the first game. I mean, I think, wasn't that our first or second away game of the season?
Yes,
it was very early, and we was playing the 5 back, and we didn't. I'll be honest with you, when we were playing that system away from home, we didn't really know what we were doing. It just didn't look like we knew what we were doing. So I kind of discount that a little bit. The FA Cup, yeah, that was more recent, but we made a lot of changes. Obviously, I think Fleming dropped to the bench being one. He would obviously start. Providing he's fit, and of course he'd be starting on Saturday. Sheffield United, I think, are a side that if out of the top 2, if anyone's going to get caught, it's them. I think Middlesbrough are flying, so I think they will have one eye on looking at that and maybe getting a little bit jittery. I mean, Heckingbottom, I don't fully know what happened at the game yesterday, but I believe he was sent off. For kicking out at the 4th official, or something happened. And for a manager, you're second in the league. I get that the big games, you don't want to lose the big games, but could pressure be starting to maybe a little bit of, nerves settling in and stuff like that? I think it'll be another really tight game. I think Sheffield United will come back with a point to prove, but so will we. And we're at home in front of our home fans, and it's on TV. And I think our players have got a lot to prove. And if they've looked at social media, which some of them do, we know that.
Mm-hmm.
They would have seen that the reaction on after Tuesday's game was that wasn't good enough. And if anything, they want all the marketing that goes out on Twitter is, fill the den, getting your seats early, but the atmosphere, we need you, and this, that, and the other. Well, they're getting it because the numbers are good. Show the fans that you really want them there.
Yeah, I agree. There's only once a season we've lost more than once in a row, and that was earlier in the season. I think that was the stretch where we had with Norwich away, Reading at home, and Burnley away, which was tough in itself, aside from the Reading game. But we are normally a bounce back ability sort of side, if I can coin that phrase. And I agree with you. I think the players will want the reaction to that, and the squad, after Saturday, the whole showing Billy Mitchell getting his shirt in the changing room and stuff like, they're a hungry bunch and they want to achieve, and I think they'll want to bounce back. It's just, it does beg the question, if we give them time and space, which hopefully we don't at the Den, but you give these sides time and space, the likes of Sander Berg in there, they're going to cause trouble and they're going to run rings around us, aren't they? So you've got to get after them in this sort of game, I feel like.
That's it. If they've learned any lesson from Tuesday, is do not give good players time and space. And you can respect them, and you can't just be blasé about it and let them do whatever they want or go try and fly into tackles. But be tight, be aggressive. Similar to what we did against Watford at home, I thought. That first half, we said to their sort of star players and, João Pedros of the world, you know what? We are gonna absolutely rattle you, and we're gonna be in your face, and we were 3-0 up at half time.
Yeah.
We might not go 3-0 up on Saturday by doing the same thing, but Watford they're in the top 6. They've got good players at this level. Sheffield United, the same thing. Why can't we start aggressive and start on the front foot and say to these big teams, we're not scared of you. We know we have to beat you to make the top 6, and we're going to do our best to do it. And I'm sure the fans, I don't know about you, I'll ask your opinion, but if, as a supporter, obviously going on Saturday, if we turned up, went on the front foot and really gave it a go and were beat, I could accept that. I really could accept that. I can't accept if we let, for example, Ndiaye have all the space that Gyökeres had on Tuesday night, especially at the Den.
Definitely, and you're right to ask me that as well, because as you were saying about being on the front foot, all I was thinking there was Kenny Jackett used to say, the fans have got to be brought into the game. The fans don't bring the players into the game. The players bring the fans into the game, especially at the Den. And I think that rings true. And you're right. I will take it if we gave it a good go, got beat 2-0, but we huffed and puffed, had chances, and the players were hungry for it. You do accept that because that's all you want, the minimum, especially against a side. Let's be honest, they've got the budget. They're we're inferior to them in the financial sense. Sander Berg's a 20-30 million pound footballer, for God's sake, and that's more than our team put together. So and I think that tells the story there a little bit. And yeah, I think it is the key. Bring the fans into the game, because we can be a difference maker, especially in these sort of games, can't we?
And that's it. You're right. That Jacket quote of the players bring the fans into the game, not the other way around. I don't know what you think about this, but I feel like that the supporters, especially against Sunderland, there were moments, the goal, the disallowed goal, just after the goal, there were moments where it was like it was a bit of a fortress, and it was very, very good to be part of it. But it almost feels like the players are waiting for something, the fans are waiting for something. You just something. As I say, the Watford game, I'd love us to attack Sheffield United like that. And I think that would get the crowd off their seat. That would get the crowd involved. And once you've got the crowd, you don't lose them.
No.
Because they then spur you on, and you keep pushing, and you keep trying to play and get on the front foot. I think Sheffield United are a side that I don't think they're one that's likely to buckle under the pressure. I think Bramall Lane is a very similar. The atmosphere at Bramall Lane is very, very intense, so they're used to playing in places like that. But ignore them, take them out of the equation, do it for our own players, and get our own players, wanting to bring the crowd into play.
Definitely. And on the note of the crowd, I mean, I see a couple of neutral videos on YouTube after the Sunderland game, and they're like, the atmosphere was brilliant. But we're Millwall, and we've seen better atmospheres, haven't we, at the Den? It's like, you're right. At times, it can be loud. I think there was that decibel tweet that went round, and it was like the loudest decibel it's been this season. And I think that was like towards the first half, and when we was like, had that disallowed goal. It's not, it wasn't the greatest atmosphere, I think, against Sunderland, like through the whole duration of the game. And I think it is that element of what we're saying there of, the players have got a duty there in the sense that, let's get on that front foot, like you said, to bring the point round.
I saw a tweet that someone, I can't remember who it was, that said the 3,000 at QPR was better than the sellout at the Den the week before. And it's, in a way, if you really think about it, it's quite hard to argue that. I thought, QPR, I know we both were in the game. It was brilliant. That away end was absolutely rocking for large spells of the game, and it's hard to argue that fact. The fans, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of the supporters. There's still that trust with Rowett, or if we go 1-0 up, there's no point getting too involved because he's just going to sit us back and try and hold on to it type thing. I think that does come into it a little bit, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, because if it works, you go home with a 1-0. If we'd have beat Sunderland 1-0 and perhaps not conceded, it was a bit of a sloppy goal. You don't concede that goal. I don't think in that position, I don't think Sunderland score. You go home with 3 points and you're absolutely buzzing. Yeah. The fact that they do score and then the crowd gets picked apart on, they weren't this good, they weren't that good. You win the game. No one's talking about that. Nobody's talking about that at all.
I know, obviously, this is the big week now, isn't it? The 2 games coming up. Sheffield United at home on Saturday, Burnley at home on Pancake Day. Gutted to be missing out making pancakes personally, but hopefully I'll do it on the Wednesday to make up for it. But if we lose both, I don't think it's the end of the world. And we get carried away a lot as fans here, because I think we do well against the sides we should be beating at the Den. I think of Rotherham at home, we win 3-0. You say about teams giving us respect. They gave us respect, but we played them off the park that day and absolutely dominated them. We're not going to be expecting to beat Sheffield United or Burnley. And this is when it's that Mill kind of element of the crowd and stuff like that. And if we lose both games, I don't think we will personally. Hopefully we get a result. I think if we are going to get a result, for me, it's Saturday personally. Or maybe it's Tuesday when Burnley turn up with young players. Who knows? There's an element where you can talk about it in different senses there. But I don't think it's the end of the world if we lost both games. Not that I want to think about losing both, but we get carried away, don't we? We lose and it's like the end of the world. And Tuesday we're like, oh, for fuck's sake, that's it or whatever. But it's not. It's still a long way to go this season. I think I want to highlight there.
It's bipolar mill, isn't it?
Yeah.
The highs and the lows.
Yeah.
After yesterday, I thought Blackburn getting an equaliser at West Brom, I thought it certainly raised my sort of confidence in the kind of week ahead. With 1 point outside the playoffs. I know there's a couple of fixtures this weekend where teams around us are playing each other again, so both teams can't pick up maximum points. And I just think that we just need to be a little bit realistic. We do have games in hand. Yes, okay, Burnley is going to be tricky, and we know that. But it is possible to maybe lose a game like we have, and the season's not finished. It's not over by a long, long way. There's a lot of twists and turns. I would hazard a guess that, and nobody knows this, but come that last, I think it's been moved to Bank Holiday Monday, the last game, because of the coronation and whatnot. Come that last Monday, there's going to be about 7 teams that can make the top 6 the way it's going, because teams are going to pick up points, teams are going to drop points. I don't get me wrong, I was very disappointed and a little bit defeatist after the Coventry game, and I think you'd be struggling to find many Millwall supporters that were really positive after the game, because that's just not going to happen. But I don't think I'm going to put it on. I don't think we're going to lose both of these next 2 games. I don't know what that means in terms of, I'm not saying we're going to go and win against Sheffield United or Burnley, but we're not going to lose both of these games, in my opinion. And if we do come out of it and we are maybe a couple of points outside of the playoffs, fine, so be it. We're going to have easier fixtures to come that might be able to catch up those points. Who knows? But if we do lose both, to your point, don't want to think about it. But if we do, as you say, I fully agree. I don't think it's the end of the world.
Because after, say we get to April, right, and say, for example, we lost, but like you look at our run of games from the 1st of April, it's West Brom away, tough one. really tough game actually, to be honest. I think, and then you got Luton at home, Hull away, Preston at home, Birmingham at home, Wigan away, Blackpool away, and then Blackburn at home. Like none of them put fear in me, and I think
No.
if we really want to have it, like I think we could play our way back into contention, is what I'm trying to say. And I don't think this season it's normally say 73, 74 points to maybe get 6th place in the playoffs. I'm just skipping that on top of my head, but it's normally the low 70s region. I think this season in particular is going to be one of the lowest to get into the playoffs. I feel like because we're on 46 points, Watford's on 47. There's only for them, Watford in particular, there's only 36 points left available for the rest of the season. Like there's not a lot up for grabs here. Not 36, sorry, it's 42, sorry. But like my point is like, yeah, we could lose 2 games, but I don't think it'll be the end of the world. And I just think it's always easy to get carried away. It's very easy to fall into that trap a little bit. But yeah, I mean, back to Saturday, what sort of changes are you anticipating? I mean, or what would you maybe change if you was Gary Rowett on Saturday? What are you expecting?
I think the obvious one, we spoke about it earlier. I think I would get Scott Malone in at left back. I would take Murray Wallace out of the firing line a little bit. I think personally, I think we might, if it was me, and I think Rowett may be tempted to give Bradshaw a rest as well, and try something a little bit different, because I can't see how you can keep pushing your only striker, well, really recognised striker now, with the same tactics week after week after week. I just don't see how that can be beneficial. I would
so
play
Burke, I guess. Or
well, to be honest with you, I would play Burke, but I'd actually put Watmore through the middle. Go Watmore through the middle and perhaps Burke out wide. Honeyman's possibly done enough to stay in. I think he's been okay over the last he was very good against Sunderland.
Yeah.
Okay against QPR, and obviously I don't think many come out with much credit against Coventry, but he's probably done enough to stay in. Murray Wallace definitely changed, and I would potentially be looking at Bradshaw. I think maybe one of the middle two. I think there's an argument that maybe one of them could be rested, but I wouldn't do that personally.
No, me neither. But there is an argument for Shackleton to get a go, because I do like Jamie Shackleton a lot, and there's a real player in there. But I think Saville and Mitchell have got that midfield locked down, haven't they? And it's hard to argue against the pair of them. But I agree with you. I'm not Malone's biggest fan. I never really have been. I love Malone. I like that lockdown season in particular. The goal he gets scored Sheffield Wednesday, Gascoigne-esque, all this sort of good stuff. Like I've just never been his biggest fan. And I don't know. I feel like a game against Sheffield United where they've got their wing backs bombing on. It's going to be a toughie for him, I think. But it's also going to be a tough game for Murray Wallace because he's out of sorts. So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Or maybe Malone could come in and score a well deal on the Saturday for all I know. Who knows?
It's important it's interesting you said that there, the wing back situation at Sheffield United. It's important that whoever plays on the right and the left in an attacking position needs to be helping out their fullback. They have to be. I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm sure Joe will listen back to this and absolutely hate me for it, and you already know what's coming. I wouldn't be surprised if Vogelsama gets recalled, purely on the basis that I think defensively and with their attackers and their wing backs, I think that if he doesn't get picked, then Honeyman and possibly Watmore are going to have to do a lot of work off the ball.
Nice.
I wouldn't go with Vogelsama personally, but I can see Rowett being cautious against Sheffield United.
Bless him, Joe. He's very opinionated with his hatred for Vogelsama. I think Vogelsama's gone off the boil. Was he on the boil in the first place? He was efficient. He was doing a job, but like he's gone off what that was, in my opinion, a little bit. But it's competition for places. Play your way back into the side, I suppose. And if he gets the opportunity Saturday, to see what he does, I suppose.
He's another one though. Much like Fleming, he was shooting from all over the place. He hit a couple of absolute rockets when he'd first come into the team.
Norwich away, I remember one. Yeah.
Where's that gone? Why are we not encouraging those players? If they can hit the ball as well as that, why are we not giving them the opportunity or letting them have the opportunity to do that?
Yeah, definitely. We didn't say Ramirez. I mean, game too soon for him, big occasion, or just like Burke's got to come in. I think personally.
Yeah,
but
Ollie Burke as well. Ollie Burke is his old club.
That is true. Yeah.
it is. I think there is definitely a case for him to come in, and that's why I would potentially look at starting him. And if I was going to drop one of the front three, or I will use the word rest rather than drop, I would say Bradshaw, just to freshen it up a little bit, try something different. If I would love Gary Rowett to kind of come out and have the guts to start Romain Esse, it would be a real statement, a real confidence boost for him as well. I think you might see him get more game time. He'll get, I think, obviously depending on how the game's going, of course, but I think you might see him get more than maybe the 10 minutes that he got this time. And I think there's definitely a player in there, and if Millwall and if Rowett and the coaching staff have got anything about them, they'll encourage it.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, we'll end on the typical question of what do you think the score's going to be Saturday night? Oh, you go first, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, throw me under the bus and then just sort of...
Then end the show after that, and then it's like,
I'll never go against us at the Den. I'll never ever go against us. To be honest with you, we used to be on Super 6 quite a lot, and I'd never back against us at all.
Even away from home. Yeah,
same result all the time. I'd go 2-1 Millwall.
I like it. I like it.
I say that through gritted teeth and sort of thinking to myself, this could go horrendously bad now. But I'd never back against us at home. I think the players will look to right the wrongs from Tuesday night.
Yeah, I want to go 2-1, but I think you've got two teams that'll be eager to avenge their midweek defeats. I think we'll have an advantage though with the extra day preparation. I don't often believe in that, but I think Sheffield United will be rattled from Wednesday, and I do think that'll play a part. But I think I could just see us both cancel each other out. I think there'll be goals, but I'm going to go for 1-1 draw. I hate sitting on the defence, but you went 2-1, so that stopped me from doing it. So I'll go 1-1, and I'll take it.
So next time, or you can predict the Burnley result first next time, and then you not sit on the fence.
I'll go 1-1, and you know who didn't play against them in the cup as well? Jake Cooper. He came off the bench, and who does Cooper like scoring against?
That's true. Everyone put your money on that.
There you go. That's my tip for you. Stephen Topman, thank you for joining me as always, mate. Much appreciated.
Yeah, no, good show.
Good show indeed. Good show. That's us for today. If you're new around here, be sure to subscribe, like the video, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at @ThatMillPod, and just check us out across other socials. Mickey plugs TikTok all the time. He posts a lot of random shit on there, I'll be honest, but have a look. @ThatMillPod, everywhere you can find it. And we'll be back after the game on Sunday. I think you're doing a space, aren't you, as well on Sunday night?
Yeah, the call in. Obviously, try and get involved. It's good to get as many people listening in as possible. That'd be great.
Definitely. Nice one. So that's us for today, and we'll be back after Sheffield United. Cheers, guys.